You don't need another book. You don't need another morning routine. You don't need another self-help reel telling you to be positive. What you need is war. War with the part of yourself you've spent your entire life pretending doesn't exist. Because the reason you're anxious, the reason you can't focus, the reason you feel like you're split in half, calm on the outside but cracked under the surface, it's not because you're broken. It's because you've never faced the shadow. Carl Jung tried to tell you, not in hashtags, not in cute quotes. He told you that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. And that's exactly what's happening to you now. You're not cursed. You're not unlucky. You're being controlled by parts of yourself you've never had the guts to face. The jealousy you pretend not to feel. The rage you tuck under being chill. The need for validation you dress up as ambition. The fear you camouflage as playing it safe. All of it, your shadow. And it's not going anywhere. You can bury it in comfort, drown it in porn, numb it with work or women. You can outlift it, outpray it, outperform it, but it will still run your life. And here's the worst part. The more you deny it, the stronger it gets. Because the shadow doesn't die from silence. It feeds on it. Every time you hold back your truth to keep the peace, it grows. Every time you smile to hide disgust, it grows. Every time you choose the easy route instead of the right one, just to avoid judgment, it grows. And eventually, it leaks. In sarcasm, in self-sabotage, in sudden outbursts that don't make sense, in secret fantasies that would destroy your image if anyone ever found out. You think you're a good man, but the truth is, you're just a well-trained mask, and masks crack under pressure. That's why you panic when she pulls away. That's why you can't sit in silence without stimulation. That's why you keep running from conflict, shrinking in the face of responsibility, overthinking every damn thing instead of moving like a man. You've been told your shadow is evil, that it's the part of you to avoid, to suppress, to starve. But Jung knew better. He knew the shadow wasn't evil. It was raw potential, untapped strength, repressed fire, reckless truth, unfiltered instincts, everything powerful in you that never got integrated, only hidden. The shadow is your denied power, and until you reclaim it, you will always be at war with yourself. And that's what you feel right now. Not depression, not anxiety, not burnout. You feel the cost of disowning half your soul. You feel the pain of trying to be a good man without ever becoming a whole one. You've been taught to fear your darkness, but that darkness is your entry point to freedom. Because real power doesn't come from denial, it comes from integration, not becoming a slave to your shadow, but facing it, owning it, channeling it, so it serves you instead of sabotages you. You want to stop self-sabotaging, then stop pretending you're only light, because that lie is what's killing you. Jung said the shadow is 90% pure gold, and you're throwing it away every time you avoid confrontation, every time you suppress anger and call it growth, every time you fake kindness to avoid being seen as cruel, every time you choose approval over authenticity. You're not avoiding darkness, you're avoiding your depth, and if you don't face it, she will. Your woman will feel it. She'll feel that split, that gap between the image you project and the tension you hide. She won't trust you, not because she's broken, but because you are fragmented, and a fragmented man can't lead. He can't hold the line. He can't create polarity. He can't command respect, because underneath all his goodness, he's a ticking time bomb of repressed chaos. You don't need more positivity. You need integration. You need to meet your own violence without being consumed by it. You need to look your envy in the eye and learn from it. You need to feel your lust, your selfishness, your need to control, and discipline it, not destroy it. because that's how you stop being a slave to your own psychology. You want to become unshakable. You want to walk into the world and not care who misunderstands you. You want to stop chasing and start leading. Then you need to meet the man inside you who never got permission to speak. The real you. The one who isn't here to be liked. The one who isn't afraid of silence. The one who doesn't say sorry just to survive. The one who isn't a puppet pulled by fear, shame, or approval. You meet him in the dark, not in the spotlight, not in comfort, not in curated routines and feel-good affirmations. You meet him when everything in you wants to run, and you stay. You sit with the anger. You stare at the shame. You tell the truth you've avoided for 10 years. And in that fire, you don't break. You become. That's what Carl Jung meant when he said, "No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." You don't reach the heights by rising above your darkness. You rise by descending into it and making it your foundation. You think you're angry because she disrespected you, because your boss embarrassed you, because your friend betrayed you, because life hasn't gone your way. But Jung would tell you the truth, and it won't feel good. You're not angry because of them. You're angry because they exposed you. They touched a nerve you've been hiding. They mirrored something you haven't faced. They triggered a part of you that you don't want to admit exists. That's projection. And it's happening all the time. You don't just see other people. You see your shadow in them. And you hate it because you've been trained to hate that part of yourself. That's why you judge the arrogant guy, but secretly wish you had his confidence. Why you mock the rich, but still envy their power. Why you're repulsed by dominance, and yet crave to lead. Why you resent her independence, but can't stand how dependent you feel. You think these are moral reactions. They're not. They're signs that your shadow is running your life from the basement. And as long as it stays there, unacknowledged, unclaimed, it will sabotage every connection you try to build. That includes women, especially women, because she doesn't trust the man who's pretending to be pure. She doesn't feel safe with the man who's always nice. She doesn't open to the man who's never dark, because she knows he's lying. Even if you say all the right things, even if you never raise your voice, even if you're always understanding and emotionally intelligent, if your shadow is buried, you are divided. And a divided man cannot hold a woman. He cannot lead her. He cannot protect her, because he can't even protect her from himself. So she will test you, push you, cry, withdraw, provoke. Not because she wants to destroy you, but because she's trying to see if you have a center that won't collapse under pressure. And most men fail that test, not because they're weak, but because they're trying to lead from a self they haven't even met. You've been taught to love with open arms, but closed truth. To be emotionally available, but never emotionally honest. To make her feel safe, even when your own nervous system is on fire. To never upset her, even if it means betraying your own instincts. And the result? You become a servant to her emotions, while silently resenting her for never respecting you. But how could she respect you? You haven't owned your fire. You've given it away for peace. And peace bought with self-abandonment is not peace. It's spiritual slavery. And that shadow, the one you thought you buried, she feels it. Every time you fold instead of lead. Every time you try to fix her mood instead of holding the storm. Every time you panic at the first sign of distance and chase her like a boy instead of holding your frame like a man. She knows, and it kills attraction, kills trust, kills polarity, kills the very thing you're trying to build. Because deep down, she doesn't want your perfection. She wants your wholeness. She wants to know that when things get dark, you've already been there. You've walked your own hell. You faced your demons, and you didn't fold. That's the man she can open to. That's the man she can follow. That's the man who doesn't lose himself in a storm because he's made peace with his own. But that kind of man isn't born. He's forged in silence, in stillness, in the nights where you stare your own shame in the face and don't run. The problem is, most men have confused self-control with suppression. They call themselves calm, but really, they're just numb. They call themselves centered, but really, they're just disconnected. They call themselves mature, but really, they're just scared of their own power. Because power without integration terrifies the modern man. You've been told it's dangerous. You've been told to stay balanced, to be safe, to be agreeable, to never raise your voice, to never assert too strongly. You've been told to be a better man by amputating the parts of you that make you dangerous in the right way. But there is no strength in being tame. There's only strength in being capable of destruction and choosing discipline instead. But you don't get to make that choice unless you own the part of you that can destroy, the part of you that's hungry, the part of you that's selfish, the part of you that could take but chooses to build, the part of you that could dominate but chooses to lead. You only become that man when you stop judging your darkness and start commanding it. You want to know who you really are? Then stop asking. Start observing what triggers you. Start watching where you collapse. Start tracking the moments you abandon truth for approval. Start sitting with the urges you're afraid to admit even exist. Not to indulge them, but to understand them, to see what they're pointing to learn what's still missing in your center. Because every shadow you face becomes power you didn't know you had. And every shadow you avoid becomes a chain you didn't know you were wearing. That's what Jung meant when he said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And you've done it too. You've performed, you've avoided, you've postured, you've numbed. But if you've made it this far, that part of you is dying now. The false self, the image, the version of you that needs to be understood more than it needs to be complete. Because wholeness isn't built through comfort, it's built through confrontation. And that confrontation isn't with the world, it's not even with her, it's with you. The part of you that never got seen, the part of you you've been hiding for years, the part of you that doesn't need therapy, it needs respect. Your respect, the respect of a man who's done running. You're not here to stay hidden. You're not here to live half of a life. You're not here to bury your truth so you can wear someone else's mask and call it maturity. You're here to be whole. And wholeness isn't clean. It's not pretty. It's not safe. Wholeness means facing the part of you that could destroy and refusing to let it. Wholeness means becoming the man who could lie, manipulate, collapse, and doesn't. Not because he's above it, but because he's been there and came back in command. That's what Jung was really pointing to. He never told you to fix your shadow. He told you to integrate it, to pull it out of the dark, sit with it, speak to it, understand it, and then make it serve your mission. You do that, and everything changes. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop chasing approval. You start speaking truth. You stop needing peace. You start creating order inside chaos. And that's when people start saying you're different. They can't explain it. You didn't get louder. You didn't get meaner. You just stopped folding. You stopped betraying yourself. You stopped playing games to make people comfortable. Because now, your shadow works for you. Now, when pressure shows up, you don't panic, you recognize it. Now, when temptation calls, you don't flinch, you choose differently. Now, when conflict hits, you don't crumble. You hold the ground inside yourself that no one else can touch. That's the real strength, not performative discipline, not emotionless coldness, not spiritual bypassing with positive vibes only. Real strength is integration, the ability to stand in front of your own chaos and not run, To look at the worst in you and still say, "You don't scare me anymore." And when you live from that place, from that spine, from that center, from that grounded, fiery, unwavering truth, you become untouchable. Not because nothing shakes you, but because even when you shake, you don't abandon yourself. Now your woman feels it. Now your friends feel it. Now your business, your leadership, your presence, all of it sharpens. Because when your shadow is owned, your energy is clean. You stop leaking. You stop explaining. You stop being afraid of being seen, because you've already seen yourself. And that's the thing. That's why this whole world is breaking right now. Because we've raised men to perform goodness, not to embody wholeness. We've taught you how to say the right things, how to smile the right way, how to be socially safe, emotionally available, spiritually gentle, all while dying inside. But you're done with that. You're done with being hollow. You're done with living on the surface. You're done with being the nice guy who secretly resents everyone he loves. You're choosing something better now, something harder, something truer. You're choosing to be the man who knows himself completely and still shows up with honor, not to please, not to be liked, but because he refuses to be ruled by anything he hasn't faced. That's the true mark of a man. Not how much light he projects, but how much darkness he's walked through and claimed. And that means going back to the wounds, back to the betrayal you still don't talk about, back to the shame you pretend you're over, back to the mistakes you swore never happened, back to the younger version of you that you still judge, and reclaiming him, because he's still in there, still pulling strings, still hijacking your decisions, still showing up in your relationships, your silence, your fear, your withdrawal. And you're not free until he is. So go back, face him, not to fix him, but to bring him home. Tell him he was never weak. Tell him he was surviving. Tell him you see him now. Tell him he's not running the show anymore, because you are. And when you do that, when you reintegrate that boy, that animal, that wounded rebel, and lead him with your full adult spine, you don't become soft, you become sovereign. Now you're no longer reacting from childhood. Now you're no longer triggered by old memories. Now you're no longer trying to prove you're a good man, because you already know you're a whole one. And that's what this was always about. Not being right, not being perfect, not being spiritual, but being whole enough to walk into any room, any storm, any relationship, and never leave yourself behind again. That's what she's been waiting for. That's what your life has been waiting for. That's what your purpose can finally rest on. A man who knows who the hell he is and no longer needs to run from it. And if you're still here, you feel it. The door's open now. You can go back to pretending, or you can walk forward and finally start leading. Not from performance, not from fear, not from reaction, from depth, from integration, from a center that doesn't break because it's built from your own damn bones. So go, keep digging, keep facing, keep breathing through every temptation to run, because you're not just a man anymore. You're the one who's faced himself, and you came back whole. If this stirred something real in you, don't turn it into a passing thought. Don't bookmark this. Don't save it for later. Don't treat your awakening like content. It's not. It's a threshold. You either walk through it, or you go back to distraction, nice words, and the slow death of your real self. So speak. Drop your voice below. Leave a mark that you're in this for real. Write what you're reclaiming, or what you're done running from. Like this video and subscribe. Remember, there are still men who refuse to kneel. There are still men who face the dark and come back whole. There are still men building something real. And now, so are you.